All right, man, peace. So the great Boston Celtics point guard Kyrie Irving recently made the news by disavowing himself from any commemoration or celebration of Christmas. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Kyrie Irving certainly does not think it's time to panic. He did offer this hot take on Christmas Day. Only Kyrie could have a hot take about Christmas. Take a listen.
No, he just had an informed take on Christmas. But you're an idiot, so you wouldn't know that.
I mean, the hoopla on Christmas I don't really get into that. I don't really necessarily think of Christmas as a holiday. So, I'm just happy that I get to be with my family.
And he's correct. Christmas is not a holiday, as most of you brothers know by now. And some of the people who are on my channel who may celebrate Christmas, you can do what you like. That's your prerogative. But the narrative that Christmas is in celebration of Christ's birth is erroneous, as anyone who does even basic research knows. Kyrie Irving is smart enough to understand that, no, it's not a holiday. The term holiday means a holy day, a day to be venerated. Now, if you happen to be someone who worships the sun, then yes, Christmas is a holy day for you. But in general, no, it is not a holiday for anyone who believes in the scriptures or who believes in Christ. Because December 25th is not the birth date of Christ. What Christ is a name that he's commonly known by. Those of us who read the scriptures know that his name is not Jesus Christ. There is no J in the Hebrew. His name is Yahweh Shai. All right. But no, there's nothing wrong with what Kyrie said. It's not a hot take. And more and more people are waking up to the fact that most of these holidays are based in paganism. Okay. Christmas was celebrated all the way into antiquity. In the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, it was recognized as the symbolic birth or rebirth per se of Osiris. And as he was known in Rome as Saturn. As I state on this channel incessantly, the Italian peninsula was known in antiquity as Saturnia. Nimrod and his father Cush did not just rule in ancient Kemet. They ruled in Babylon. They ruled in the Italian peninsula as well. So that's why he's known under different names in various regions. Okay. Now, I don't agree with all of Kyrie's ideologies, but this one, he's certainly on point. I don't know what Kyrie's belief system is. From what I've read, he associates with some of the new age so-called Christian churches out there in LA. I believe he's associated with the pastor who is the pastor for Justin Bieber. I don't know how true that is. I know that his father is a believer in Buddhism. So Kyrie just may be a person who's out there searching. Who knows? But either way, he understands that Christmas is not a holiday. Now, just getting back to some of the origins of so-called Christmas, as already has been stated, December 25th was recognized as the birth of Osiris, aka Bacchus, aka Tammuz. Why is that? Because the winter solstice represented the disappearance of the sun and the reappearance of the sun. The ancient cultures worshiped the sun. The ancient cultures practiced what was known as a stellar religion, Stellar, meaning they utilized the star formations and many of the other celestial bodies as embodiments of the notable figures of antiquity, that being Cush, Nimrod, Semiramis, Noah, Adam, Eve, etc. Okay, so the sun disappears on December 21st, what we call the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. And then it starts to reappear on December 24th. People have to understand that Christmas is not just a holiday on the 25th. It starts on December 24th. And in the ancient time, that was known as Mother's Night. Right? That's why we call it Christmas Eve. Okay? So the celebration starts on December 24th and goes into December 25th, where it was known in ancient Rome as the Saturnalia, in which the practices were drunkenness and revelry. wanton sex, of course, the exchange of gifts. In ancient Rome, the slaves would trade places with the master for a day. And they would put on, if I remember correctly, I think it was a purple robe, the color purple symbolizing rulership. Also, please remember that Nimrod, in his manifestation as Baal or Molech or even Saturn, was the god of death. So oftentimes on December 25th, they would have numerous gladiatorial games where on those days they would be forced to fight to the death as a sacrifice to Nimrod. In history, when you see things like the Aztecs sacrificing people to the sun god, that was in commemoration of Nimrod. Or as he was known as in his incarnation as the god of death, Osiris, Shiva, Saturn. It's all talking about the same person. I go over this over and over and over again. But that's what the Christmas festival is about. Like the 12 days of Christmas. Those were 12 days in ancient Kemet where they venerated Osiris. So now they just transferred it over to the quote unquote 12 days of Christmas. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with what Kyrie said here. He certainly was on point.
He also referred to that game on the 25th. So, he's very woke, Kyrie. He's very woke. Let's move.
You see Scotty and Tracy didn't say anything. Scotty and Tracy like, look, I'm not touching that. If the brother has those beliefs, that's what he has. And let me say this too. Not even from a historical perspective, but just from a conventional perspective, Christmas is a day that's really used to oppress men. Like, that whole time period from Thanksgiving all the way to so-called Valentine's Day, it's just a series of so-called holidays that are used to oppress men. All these guys running around pulling their hair out, trying to figure out what they're going to buy. All these people spending most of their check that oftentimes they can't afford to appease people who most of the time are not going to be around for the long term anyway. I never forget it when I was a kid. I was on the train and I heard these two guys talking about Christmas one time, and one of them was saying, "Oh man, I'm thinking about becoming a Jehovah's Witness because I can't deal with this Christmas stuff." So many of these cats are out here getting oppressed, celebrating these fake holidays, and most of these holidays and what they call the holiday season, which, as I stated, is from Thanksgiving all the way to so-called Valentine's Day. It's all to appease the woman. And I've stated this on my channel in the past. Most of these holidays are for women and children. It's not for the man, because there's no real spiritual basis or intellectual basis behind these things, which is what really will galvanize most men. That is why once you do give up on most of these holidays like Christmas, etc., there will be a lot of tension with the female. That's why it's always advisable, and I always tell cats this: when you first coming into the knowledge, you really shouldn't have a woman, right? Well, you should go and pursue that once you have all your other things in order, right? But I've seen guys come into the knowledge with the woman, and it never works, because for the most part, the woman has a hard time dealing with the transition from the matrix to the real world. That's not a transition that most of them can handle. And as a man, when you're coming into reality, you're going to become a different person. You're going to transform. And many of the people who knew you before your transformation are not going to be comfortable with the changes that come over you, because you're going to, as Kyrie has, disavow yourself of certain holidays. It's going to appear as if you're ostracizing yourself, and you're really not. It's just that, you're moving in a different direction. And if the people that you surrounded yourself with before you started this transformation, this journey, if they're not willing to go on it with you, you have to go on it by yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of manhood. All right, so now the CBS Morning News, they also had a little segment on a family that is overly obsessed with their quote-unquote Christmas tree, or their Osiris tree, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to include this segment and just chime in here and there.
CBS This this morning, Saturday. The Christmas tree at the Rhode Island State House didn't quite make it to the holiday. And we're sad to say earlier this week it had to be replaced because its needles dried up and some branches were bare.
But let me say this. The evergreen tree, as being symbolically used as the Christmas tree, that was brought in by the ancient Romans. They brought in the fir tree as symbolizing Osiris, as he was known in Rome as Saturn. The ancient people of Kemet used the palm tree because the understanding was that the mother goddess, as she was known as Auset, or she's also known as Sybil or Cybele or Rhea or Minerva, whatever you want to call her, the mother goddess, she was represented by a tree. Why? Because a tree produces fruit, and the fruit is representative of teachings. So one of her branches represented her son, that being Nimrod, her son/husband. So when the branch was broken off, it was cast into the fire. That's representative of when he was killed, because that's what occurred to Nimrod when Shem put down his apostasy or put down his rebellion. Shem is known in the Kemetic mystery schools as Set or Typhon. He's represented in the constellations as Taurus. Okay, and that's where you get, just as a digression, as an aside, that's where you get the image of the god Mithras, spelled Mithras. Mithras is another manifestation of Osiris or Bacchus or whatever you want to call him. And they always show Mithras grabbing the bull by the horns. That's where you get that statement from. You have to grab the bull by the horns. Mithras is grabbing the bull by the horns and the nostrils, and he's stabbing him because that represents Nimrod getting revenge on Shem, who had him put to death, had him chopped up. Okay, so anyway, the tree was representative of the mother goddess whose branch was broken off, which is symbolized by the log that's thrown into the fire, as Nimrod was put to death and he was thrown into the fire. Okay, first he was dismembered, and then thrown into the fire. So when the branch was broken off of the tree symbolically and thrown into the fire, that's where you get the symbol of the Yule log, because the term Yule also means boy or son. Okay, so many of these mythological stories, they have double and triple meanings, because as I tell you, brothers, they're coded versions of what occurred historically. So when, in the morning, when the tree is reinvigorated or regrown, that represents Nimrod being sprung back to life as Tammuz. The word Tammuz, the name Tammuz, means purified by fire, because he was thrown into the fire, but he was reborn. And that represents the reinvigoration of the teachings of Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis. All right.
But one Southern California family is having much better luck with their tree. Maria Villarreal has the story.
Joe and Gina Mistretta bought this potted Scotch pine 34 years ago when it was about 3 feet tall.
It looks different every year. Some years are good, some years are not. You happen to catch it on a really good year.
You know how many people die every year from bringing these trees into their house and the trees catch on fire? And the scriptures tell you not to do that. You can read Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, starting from the 2nd verse. It tells you about the vanity of the practices of the other nations, man. How they bring the tree into their home and they deck it with gold and silver. Those are the words that are used. Right? That's why you have that Christmas song, quote unquote, deck the halls with boughs of holly, right? Same thing with the tree. That's what they do. So you're not supposed to do that. Even the mistletoe branch once again represents Nimrod. That's why you kiss under the holly branch or the mistletoe branch, because Nimrod was also known as the Holly King, which came into, of course, holly, the mistletoe was sprang into fullness around December 25th. You kiss under the mistletoe because that represents the reconciliation of the sun back into the world. Okay, so that's where all these practices come from. And this stuff goes way back to antiquity. Once again, it's your business if you celebrate it, but it has nothing to do with the scriptures at all. And you put the presents under the tree because those represent gifts to the reborn son, right? Nimrod, or Osiris, or as he's known in rebirth as Tammuz, the god of vegetation. Okay? The evergreen tree represents everlasting life because it's never supposed to die.
1983, it was so small it could only hold one string of lights. And when the holiday was over, out it went, not to the trash or recycling bin, but to a new year-round home in the yard.
It's got its own shape, it's got its own character, but it's still growing.
A few years later, Joe and Gina had two little boys who grew to love Christmas morning around their tiny tree. Now 27 and 31, it's the only Christmas tree Michael and Joseph have ever known.
Look at these two idiots, two grown-ass men still worshiping a damn tree. Bet money neither one of these dudes have a woman. Grown-ass men holding up a damn decoration for a tree. And let me say this before I forget, because I almost forgot. In regards to the god, the so-called god Mithras, he was venerated in ancient Rome. For those of you brothers who've ever read about Constantine oftentimes when he would create or when he would mint coins, he would mint coins with Mithras depicted on the coin. Mithras is he was the inspiration for the character of Superman. For those of you who don't know, and I mentioned this before a long time ago, when you see that symbol on Superman's chest, that's not an S, that's a serpent. Okay? Because when Nimrod died, it was represented on coins in antiquity as a tree that was chopped down. All you saw was like the stock of the tree, the trunk of the tree. And they would create coins that showed a serpent wrapping around the trunk of the tree. And the serpent represented healing and rebirth. Because remember, the father of Nimrod, Cush, is represented as the great serpent because he was the man of knowledge. He was the person who created most of the practices that became known as the Babylonian mystery school system. Okay, so he was the great enlightener. He was known in Babylon as Nebo. He was also known as Hermes. Now, remember, Hermes was known as the god of healing, mathematics, writing, and he also carried the staff with what? With the intertwining serpents on it. All right, so that is who Superman is. Superman is Baal. He's the sun god. That's why he's empowered by the sun. That's why he has the red and blue outfit on, which represents the Hermetic principles, the colors coming together. And his father is named Jor-El. Remember, in ancient Canaan, you had El, who was the father of Baal. Right, so you have in the Superman comic, you have Jor-El, and then the son is named Kal-El. And they come from Krypton. The term Krypton means secret, right? Which is Saturn. That's the planet Saturn is venerated in this society, brothers. The planet Saturn is also known in mythology as Asgard, but in the comic books it's known as Krypton, meaning secret. Remember, the term Hermes or hermetically sealed means that nothing can get out, nothing can get in, nothing can get out. So. When you delved into the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, you were taught a series of secrets that if you revealed them, you would be put to death. This is where the Masons get that from today. All the Masons is a watered down version of the ancient Kemetic Babylonian mystery school system. That's all they are. But once again, Mithras is Superman. And now that it come into my mind, another term for December 25th in the ancient world was Sol Invictus, meaning the inconquerable sun. If you remember, Matt Damon did a movie by that name, Invictus. He's a plant in Hollywood, Matt Damon. And if I remember correctly, I believe it was Clint Eastwood that directed that film.
If someone is more traditional for a triangular tree, that's great, but it's really what the tree represents.
It's like people, it has good years, bad years. But, even when we thought it wasn't going to make it, they were like, well, what are we going to do? Well, you can't get rid of this tree, Dad. This is our tree.
While it looks more like a Christmas bush, with a little TLC, it continues to thrive.
And the 5-pointed star that's on top of the tree also represents the mother goddess. Okay? Remember, the name of the mother goddess in antiquity was a star tail, Ashtoreth, which means the woman, but it also means star. Okay, the mother goddess was venerated as a solar deity. Normally, the star known as the Sirius star, Sirius, the dog star, which is why, by the way, you celebrate New Year's Day on January 1st, because that is when the Sirius star, the Sirius star, is at its highest point in the sky. That's what the ball that drops on New Year's Eve, the ball represents the Sirius star. Okay?
I enjoy trimming it. I go out there, I spend a little time with it, and I go, how you doing today? Oh, you're doing good. Don't worry, I'm going to clean you up a little bit.
He's a tree talker.
So, yeah, I'm a tree talker now.
He's repotted the tree 4 times. It even survived a fire. The home's front door had to be doubled in size so the nearly 300-pound tree can still be rolled in.
Every December, they roll in a big-ass 300-pound tree. One day that tree gonna catch on fire. You're not supposed to have a tree in your house.
I mean, there is no perfect life. There is no perfect tree. We like it that way. And the ornaments that we put on it are not perfectly put in the perfect spot, but they mean something to us. So these are birds from my mom's tree, 1940. We have Lake Tahoe.
Oh, speaking of birds, that's nothing. Like when they talk about the Christmas goose, the goose is a bird that represents the sun, also the holy sun, that being Osiris, right? The name Osiris, or in the ancient Kemetic language Hesedi, it means the seed of the woman. Okay, or the seed. That was what his name meant. The name Isis or Aset, it just meant the woman. So, in the ancient Kemetic culture, the goose was representative of the sun, right? When I say sun, I mean not the sun in the sky, but the boy, S-O-N, because geese are known for being very, very protective of their children. All right. So all these animals, they have representative meanings, whether it be the falcon or the ibis. You just have to understand what they were trying to convey parabolically when they use these animals to represent these different so-called deities, which were just notable people who lived in history.
Oh, this one Michael made in kindergarten.
The tree is a time capsule of their lives. It was here when Gina's parents were alive and shared the holidays with them. It was here when Michael was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 13, and 5 years later when he went into remission.
It's really a family member. You bring it in and going, okay, it's fine for you now. Come on. I've taken care of you the whole year. Now it's your turn. Showtime.
It definitely represents tradition. It brings back memories.
And it will continue to be here as the family makes new memories. After all, the Scotch pine could well be around for another 100 years.
There's so many people that have touched this, our lives, and have been part of that tree.
You don't know if that thing gonna be around for another 100 seconds. That thing could catch fire, tonight. You don't know if that shit gonna be around another 100 years. How could you add memory? The only way that you could add memories to that tree and to your family is if you have kids. The only way you're gonna have children is if you stop decorating that damn tree and go out there and meet a woman. 2 grown-ass men, 35 years old, decorating a damn Christmas tree. Should be embarrassed, man. Shit is pathetic.
Getting older, and the tree's getting older with us, and, it's growing with us.
For CBS This Morning Saturday, Mireya Villarreal, Los Angeles.
And, let me say this before I forget, too. Because, sometimes these things, they come into my mind, and I like to mention them while they're at the forefront of my mind. The things that you eat are also representative. When things that you eat on Christmas are also representative of a lot of the metaphors for the events that occur in antiquity. Like when you eat the so-called Christmas ham, or you have people who eat the swine on Christmas. The reason why you eat the swine on Christmas, or you have what's known as the Christmas ham, is because, remember, Osiris, or Nimrod, as he's properly named, was killed by Shem. And Shem was represented in the mythological version of the events that occurred by the wild boar. The tusks in his mouth represented the power that he had to convince people that Osiris or Nimrod was wicked. Now, you know of Shem in the Star Wars series as Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's who represented Shem in the Star Wars series, loosely based. All right, Obi-Wan is loosely based on Shem, and that is why when he and Vader fought, Shem told Vader that I failed you. Remember, like I stated, Darth Vader represents Osiris, the god of death. That's why he's in all black. Right, the color for Osiris and Saturn is all black. Okay, his woman Padme is Leto or Lato, the hidden queen who had to be on the run when she was impregnated with twins. The twins, Luke Skywalker is Apollo and Leia is Artemis, the huntress. Okay, so George Lucas knew what he was doing, and as I stated, the same way that Osiris was killed and he was chopped up and thrown into the fire, what happened to Vader? He was chopped up and then he was burned alive. Okay, so that is why you eat the Christmas ham. The Christmas ham represents the destruction of Shem, because they hated Shem because he put down the rebellion of Osiris. So when you eat the Christmas ham, that commemorates the destruction of Shem. But anyway, that's the video on Christmas, and I also touched on New Year's. All New Year's is the celebrating the Sirius star or the Sirius star being at its highest point in the sky. And also, by the way, it's also when the planet Saturn is right in the middle of the constellation of Capricorn, which is the goat fish. Remember, the goat and the fish are both representative of Cush and Nimrod together. Okay, so the astrological signs, I'll probably do a video on that in the near future, if I have time and I remember. But yeah, every astrological sign is based off of the worship of, or the veneration of that triumvirate, Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis. And that's all Capricorn is. Capricorn is the goat-headed fish. Remember, Nimrod was also known as the fish god, that being Dagon or Lattice or Ichthus. All names for the same entity. And Capricorn, the goat-headed god is Cush. He was the great diviner. But I'm going to be touching on that more in depth in another video very, very soon. But anyway, peace.